connection is very good. Okay, and I wish you all the best. I hope we could see some wonderful papers today, and my best wishes with you all. Thank you so much. Hello, Sharon ma'am, can you hear me?
Yeah, sir. With institutions
All
like
right.
SVKM's
I think
Dubai
back.
College
We
and
back.
MS SVKM's IIS.
So I'll keep giving them
She's
control.
also a qualified ISO
Is
certified
Dr.
lead
Darshana
auditor,
available?
and her research includes
I
application
think
of
our first
quality
presenter
management
is not
systems
here.
in higher education.
If you're there, ma'am, can you please raise your
Rehema
hand?
ma'am, we
Whoever is to
welcome
present,
you
please
for
raise
this
your hand.
particular session. And we would start off with
Dr.
the
Durvi
first
Thakur.
participant, that is Javed sir.
I think Dr.
Farojia
Durvi
Javed
Thakur is
sir.
also not here at the moment. The third
Just a
presenter,
little bit of
Apurva Phansekar,
information
I'm
that I would
giving you
like to share
control.
with
You can
participants
start.
is that this particular panel is open. So when your name would be announced, you would be given 5 minutes for the presentation. Using the share
Mr.
screen
Phansekar,
option
can you start presenting?
and begin with the presentation.
Okay,
So,
yeah, I've given you the control. You can
yes,
start presenting.
thank you, sir.
Sure. Just give me a minute, please. Do let me know once it's visible.
It is visible. Yeah.
Just give me a minute. Okay. Yeah. So good morning to everyone present here. I would like to thank I will thank UPG College for giving me an opportunity to present my paper. And the topic of my paper is use of virtual banking during pandemic, that is COVID-19. This is the table of content which I would be presenting for the day. And this is the flow of presentation. Moving further. So this is the basic study structure. I wish to study the use of advanced digital technology, especially virtual banking, for enhancing banking operations in banking sector. So the objective is to understand what are the global characteristics of virtual banking, advantages of virtual banking, and what are the regulations in terms of virtual banking in India, and are there any players in this market. The scope is banking sector globally. The data is extracted from secondary research, which includes free text search for company websites, news articles, and freely available market research reports. So what is virtual banking? It is the only fact is known in the universe's evolution helps each and everyone to flourish, and we have seen that during the pandemic the use of technology has led to digital revolution and a transformation of industries in the global scenario. So banking is also one of the sectors which has not been excluded from the use of technology in its operations. So what is digital virtual banking? So according to Hong Kong's IFCE, Education Council, states virtual banking is a banking solution or a bank which operates totally virtually without any physical presence. It is a bridge. Currently, it's a bridge between physical and your virtual bank. In India, we do not have so much virtual banks, but India, due to pandemic, India is gaining momentum in terms of virtual banking operations in financial sector. So what is the difference between virtual bank, mobile banking, and digital banking? That is the basic question which people are asked. This is the do's and this is the things. This is the type of access which banks provide and types of banks. In mobile banking, which we have seen in 2000 and late 90s and early 2000s, the kind of services which offered was basic banking transaction, access to physical bank, it was only accessible from mobile, and fund operations were conducted through it. Then came the evolution of digital mobile banking services, which allowed user to access the data, their banking applications through laptop and desktop. Fund transactions were offered, physical access was there. And currently India is in between digital and virtual banking mode. So what is virtual banking? Virtual banking will provide all the basic facilities of banking transaction, which your digital and mobile banking will provide. It might also provide you access to physical bank, but I've currently given here a question mark, which is not currently, which I'm doubtful about it. It might give an access from laptop or desktop. Just imagine walking to an ATM. Instead of withdrawing your cash, you are speaking with a banker on a video screen, providing you then access of your information. That is what virtual banking is. So this is the review of literature from where I have extracted the data for the study. So what are the features of virtual bank? So with one of the great features which virtual bank provides is screen sharing. As I was saying, if you enter an ATM, instead of withdrawing cash, there would be a screen where a virtual banker would be present, will be available, and after keying your password, you would be the banker would be sharing his screen, and you would be both would be accessing the data on the screen on simultaneous basis, and in case of any alterations, it can be done on real-time basis. KYC approval. I hope everyone has seen ad of ICICI Bank. Every Indian is at ICICI Bank. So this is one of the feature of eKYC approval. By sitting at your home premises through video login, you can verify your document. The banker can verify your documents and approve the authentication of your documents. Sharing of document, earlier it was people used to go to banks or any other financial institute physically to share the document. But due to pandemic and presence of virtual banking, a user can use Adobe or PDF, editable PDF documents, which can be uploaded seamlessly to any banking portal. You will be getting prompt response on it since the executive will be available 24/7, or you can be using chatbot or frequently asked questions to address them. It will be very easy for banks to cross-sell a particular product because they already know what kind of customer you are and what are your spending habits. Coming to the advantage, the bank will get a cost-benefit advantage as there is no presence of physical branch in a region. Instead, it would be used on mobile app, or a small ATM kind of shop would be used for operating branch. Speedy response would be there. A bank can provide all these banking solutions under one roof, which ICICI, I like to quote example here because ICICI is providing banking solutions for retail and wholesale consumers under ICICI stack. So what are the virtual banking regulations and examples in India? What exactly India is doing? So as per Indian banking.
Sir, your time is up, sir. So your time is up.
Sure.
You have to stop.
Just limitation examples. Just I'll say about it.
I would like to request everyone to please focus on your analysis and findings rather than introduction. All right, so your time's up. I'll have to stop now.
Yeah, I just need to stop presenting. Just give me a minute, please. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. So I'll be calling, sir, any comments, Abdul sir?
Look, first of all, it was a wonderful presentation, Apurva. I really, liked the theme which you selected for your, paper. As Sharon rightly said, we are very much interested in the analysis. Okay. Because at the end of the day, the conceptual information is very easy to get, but the analysis is what exactly, you have found out from your research. So I would request the participants directly to, of course, you can just explain the premises and the outline of your research, the objectives, hypotheses, if there are any. But we would request you to, move to the analysis part, because that's what is of more importance to us. So rightly said by Sharon ma'am, I request all the participants, okay, to move to the analysis part, because you have 5 minutes, so you need to ensure that, of course, 5 minutes is a time whereby you cannot explain everything in detail, but it can be very well explained. Your analysis part can be covered. So I request everyone, but a very good effort by Apurva, and I really appreciate the theme. Your explanation was also very crystal clear. Okay, so wish you all the best. I think we can move to the next paper.
Ms. Kamya Arya, I've made you the presenter. You can start talking. You can start speaking. Okay, Purva would be presenting. I think I can see Purva raising their hand. Purva, you're next, right? You're with Kamya. So I think one of you all would be presenting. Can you tell me who will be presenting? Who should I give control to? I think Kamya's already started. So yeah.
So Purva is going to be speaking and I will be presenting. Is that fine? Can we give control to both the participants?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. Yeah, Purva, you can speak.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see your screen. So I can start presenting.
All right. Kamya, just go back to the presentation. Okay. A very good morning to everyone present here. I'm Purva Dakle from Jain College, Mumbai, and I will be presenting the paper titled Increasing Popularity of Green Bonds in India, a Trend Analysis. On behalf of my team consisting of Kamya Arya and Akriti Karnani, I'm honored to present this paper today. To start with, I would briefly like to explain the concept of green bonds. The Reserve Bank of India defines green bonds as debt instruments issued by any sovereign entity, internal governmental group or alliances, and corporates alike, with the aim that governments and the entities, as well as international organizations, work towards climate change or sustainability projects. Through our paper, we have studied the historic trend of the Indian green bonds market and have formulated a futuristic view for the same. I would first like to draw attention to the green bonds trend since 2015. Given that green bonds were first introduced to the Indian market in 2015, Kamya, can you please go on to the next slide? India saw an investment of 49 billion US dollars in 2015, which became 75 billion US dollars in 2016 to 151 billion US dollars in 2017, 153 billion dollars in USD in 2018, and saw a consequent rise in 2019 till almost 251 billion US dollars. And this was consistent in 2020 with the COVID pandemic as an investment of 252 billion US dollars. Conclusively, India has seen a market expansion of almost 5 times in 2020 than in 2015. On your screen now is the graphical representation of the increase in the green bonds market. To further study these trends, we derived the percentage increase in the issuances and investments, the result of which is on your screen now. We then went on to do a futuristic trend analysis through the available data. We compiled the data on MS Excel 2019 and by using the forecast tool, were able to predict the futuristic trends up until 2025. We also factored in the market changes due to the COVID pandemic. The market in 2021, the second half, with the COVID pandemic, is expected to be $3,525.4 million to 1,540 million US dollars in 2022 to 3,873 million US dollars in 2023 and 2,055 million dollars in 2024, with a consequent rise of 4,388.77 million US dollars in 2025. These predictions are based purely on the historic data and are independent of any unforeseen introduction of public policies or change in public sentiments. As a result, we conclude that since 2015, we have witnessed an expansion of about 683.42% in the green bonds market. This steady rise is a positive indication of the prospects that green investments have towards the growth of an economy. The fact that these investments have also fared well during the pandemic is a very promising thing. However, the lack of public awareness of these green securities hinder its growth. Moreover, the higher cost of issuances dissuade the climate change projects from seeking funding through green bonds. This can be tackled by the introduction of amenable public policies in favor of sustainable projects. We also recommend diversification of investment tools, transparency, increasing awareness, and an evaluation for tracking period. If we are to achieve all of these things, we are positive that the future of the green bonds market looks extremely promising. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, any questions?
Uh, Purva, it was a very good presentation, and indeed, green bonds remain, a theme which is under tapped in India as compared to countries like the United States of America and the Europe. Indeed, I really like the theme of your presentation, and of course, I may have my doubts on the forecast which you have presented, but indeed, as you have said that it is independent of the external environment. But indeed, it was a very good presentation, and I wish you all the best, dear.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome, my dear.
Thank you, guys. Now we'll be moving on to Aryan Karya. Thank you, Purva and Kamya. Right now, Aryan, can you please share your screen?
Yes, ma'am. Are people able to see this?
Yes, yes, we're able to see it. We're able to hear it.
All right. So my topic for today is potential of post-COVID digital transformation in the insurance industry. Good morning. My name is Aryan, and to give a brief about the industry, it started in the early 19th century. Today we have 24 life insurers and 34 general insurers, and IRDA is the regulator of the insurance industry. As mm, as we all know, COVID damaged the economy and it had a domino effect on the insurance industry as well. A lot of small and medium enterprises contributed to 30% of the GDP and they had to suffer a lot. 59% of them decided to either shut or scale down their operations. Life insurers lost almost 4 million policies and 15,000 crores in new premiums, and general insurers settled 5,400 crore COVID claims and expected a loss ratio of 8 to 10%. Digitization, after the geo revolution which took place in 2016, almost 624 million users of internet in India and close to and around 572 of them were active users of internet. India's internet penetration rate shot up to 45% in 2019. Yeah, so I'm going to focus on the findings which I had, like the research I did. The research methodology consists of primary and secondary research both. The primary research, I had asked a few questions. It was taken through a survey, and 56 respondents answered the survey. The first question, which was asked was, do you think if you have become more health conscious during the pandemic? And most of them said yes. 66%, as you can see, said yes. And then I asked if they had ever taken an insurance online, and 85.7% of them said no. Then I asked, among the following options regarding buying insurance, which one would be the most preferred route? And 26.8% said they would either get information online and buy offline, or they would get information online and buy online. Apart from that, 25% of them said they would get advice offline and buy online, and 21.4% said that they would get advice offline and buy offline, like they would take the entire procedure offline. Then I asked them whether they were favorable in buying the insurance, and I got a very mediocre response. 26.8% said they were three on the scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the least interested. They had given a 3. Then I asked them about the concerns they had during buying an insurance online, and most of them responded saying that they were unaware to whom to approach during procedural crisis, like whom should they approach during claim settlements, and whom should they approach during the payment of premiums and all. Some of them also replied that terminologies used were very complex. Some of them said that they were difficult. They were facing some difficulties to choose an appropriate insurance. Some of them were saying that online transactions felt insecure for them. Some of them said that the entire process seemed complicated for them, and some of them were uncomfortable sharing personal details on the internet. So 12.5% of them had no such concerns with the buying of an insurance online. Then I asked them whether they would prefer communicating with their agent during claim settlements, or whether they would do the entire process online. And most of them, 58.9% of them, said that they would prefer communicating with an agent. 30% of them said that either of the route is okay for them. And then I asked them whether they would prefer traditional or offline insurance, or whether they would prefer digital insurance. And 67.9% said that they would be fine with both of the options available. Apart from that, there were a lot of steps taken by the institutions to enhance and become a catalyst in taking the entire process online. The IRDA, the regulatory of the insurance sectors, launched a regulatory sandbox system. Now, in that sandbox system, it helped to test innovative products and solutions to problems which were already existing in the market. It acted like a incubator of sorts. Then the LIC of India launched the Ananda app in
Sorry
COVID.
to interrupt you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to interrupt you. We're almost out of time, so if you can wrap it up.
Sorry, ma'am. Sorry, can you repeat again what you just said?
We're almost out of time, so please wrap it up.
Yeah. This is the last slide. So the LIC of India launched the Ananda app in COVID for the agents so that they could take the entire process online. The SBI General Insurance and Bajaj Allianz, they devoted like most of major chunk of their budget in digitizing the entire frontal process. And the Max Life Insurance trained a lot of employees, and they made 24,000 policies online in a single week. That brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you. In conclusion, I would say by the trend, digitization is going to help insurers as well as the insured, with agents acting as an important link between them. Thank you.
Aryan, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Overall, a very good, presentation. Indeed, it was a bit touching because I have spent my fair share of my life with mutual funds and insurance. So again, I really like the insights which were covered by you. And the best part of the presentation was indeed, your presentation showed the transformation. I could just see how exactly you have linked the transformation. Everything is perfect. Just one small advice, if you wish to take this research forward, my dear, in insurance, mutual funds, or any other financial services, you need to understand there are two sides of a coin. Okay, first is of course the insured, and the second is the insurer. Okay, so whenever we conduct a research, we should not forget the point of view of the insurer as well. Okay, this is just an advice. If you wish to conduct or continue this research further, why I'm emphasizing much on this, because my thesis also in PhD revolved around this. Okay, so indeed, Aryan, I was amazed by your presentation, the way you explained. Wish you all the best, my dear participant. Very well.
I'll follow the guidelines that you pointed out, which were very relevant to the case study which I did. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Very well. Thanks, dear.
Now I would request Disha and Simran to please start presenting. I've given you all controls.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. So very good morning. Yeah. So very good morning to everyone present over here. Today, our research topic is an analysis on the emergence of cryptocurrency post-pandemic. To start off, these are the topics that will be covered, which is an introduction to the crypto market, the objectives of our research, the methodology that we've used, the data analysis, and finally, the major findings. So to start off, the points that we covered in the introduction are, Now, as we all know, the current scenario has supported the drastic shift to the extensive digitalization to a very large extent. Now, this shift has influenced several sectors, one of them being finance. When we talk about finance, we know that it's a part and parcel of every individual, and it is seen to be very dynamic in nature. Cryptocurrency is something that has supported this dynamic shift. As we all know that Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency which was introduced in 2009. Now, as we went on and on, by 2020 and 2021, the number of cryptos in circulation as well as the individual growth in these cryptocurrencies has increased and has showed tremendous growth. Now, cryptos have a decentralized system. Hence, the government does not have any take in it. This is why the government felt that stable coins, the concept of stable coins and CBDC is something of keeping up with the trend of the cryptocurrency. These are basically coins that are backed by secure and liquid assets in circulation. We also have notable developments in the crypto market and blockchain technology, which is the concept of DeFi and NFT. Now, DeFi is basically a decentralized finance system, which is based on, again, blockchain technology, which allows anybody with an internet connection to avail traditional financial products and services. It means any random person who just has a stable internet connection can choose any financial service that he wants without any barriers. Then we also have NFT, which is a very important concept, which is very useful for artists as it allows them to get a digital ID and earn royalties properly, as it's basically digital assets in the form of tweets, collectible items, imageries, etc. So all of this is just to prove that we have had a very drastic shift, that we started from a real world into a digital world. So now to go on to our research objectives. So we had two major objectives, which was to understand the influence of digital evolution in finance by the way of growing crypto market and its increasing future trends. The second was to understand consumers' behavior and expectations towards this increasing digitalized crypto market. Now, as for our research methodology, we used both primary and secondary data. And for primary data, we had a structured questionnaire using a random sampling method. Now, we took a survey of 55 respondents, and majority of them were lying under the age of 18 to 25. We also had some reliable articles and papers that we've cited and used for a secondary data, which supports our primary data. Now, to jump on to the major data analysis. Now, these are the responses and the questions that we asked. These are the major findings that we found through our primary data collection. So 89.1% of the 55 respondents, they said that COVID-19 had changed their spending and investing habits. 60% of them said that they thought about investing and learning about cryptocurrencies post-pandemic. Here, the emphasis is on the word of post-pandemic. Before the pandemic, I'm pretty sure these people, they might not even be aware about the concept of cryptocurrency. But seeing how digitalized the future is becoming, it is something that you have to take into consideration. 81.8% of the people said that the easy accessibility of cryptocurrency, it makes it more attractive as compared to any other class that is available to them. 63.6% people said that they wanted cryptocurrency to remain a decentralized system, that they don't want the government to be involved in it. Now, the most significant event that made these people curious about cryptocurrency market was Elon Musk's tweet about the cryptocurrency that shook the entire world. Then we also asked people about what obstacles or what are the problems that they think of, or what is it that stops them from investing in cryptocurrency. So these were the 3 points that had received the highest responses. But among them, price volatility is something that they are very afraid of. And when asked about if cryptocurrency has a promising future, 85% of people said that yes, it does. So to sum it up and to bring it to an end, all I can say is, looking at the data that we collected, even with like primary and secondary data. So the secondary data basically had instances that supported or that proved that there are so many developments in the crypto market, and it's so dynamic that it's changing every day. So that being said, with more than 60% of the respondents wanting cryptocurrency to be a decentralized system, 90% being in favor of the digital transformation, will cryptocurrency have a promising future, or will it become the new normal? I guess only time can say. Thank you.
Uh, okay, it was your paper was on cryptocurrency, and Simran very well and very energetically explained the entire paper. Interesting outcomes from your paper I have seen, and though I have also, we all are living in this 21st century and digitalized era, and we all have been exposed to the new avenues for investing digitally. So indeed, Simran, it was a very good presentation. There are, of course, the presentation was very well defined. I really like the objectives which you have selected and very well defined. Only one feedback, my dear, whenever you are going for the analysis part or when you are explaining the findings, always ensure that you maintain a sequence. It becomes very important if you maintain the sequence by either numbering it. Okay, and whenever we are using a secondary data or wherever we are giving a secondary data information on the screen, or whenever we are citing, we need to give citations. Whenever I'm, for example, I'm giving an information, okay, cryptocurrency market is say X, billion US dollars. I need to cite it, okay, from which literature I have, derived that number. Rest, it was a very energetic, a very wonderful presentation, and I wish you all the best, dear participant. Very well done.
Thank you so much, sir. And we'll make sure to take your feedback into consideration, definitely.
Thank you, dear.
All right, Bhakti, you can start now. I've made you the presenter.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Good morning to everyone present over here. Without wasting any time, I would like to start with my presentation. So the topic of my research paper is increasing interest among millennials in the capital markets. So the reason behind taking up this topic was my personal observation among my social culture that made me want to dig the reason behind the sudden surge. So here's the overview of today's presentation. So the research paper starts with explaining a very basic concept of stock market and how it works. It also tried to explain the pre and post COVID-19 situation and its impact. An upward rally was noticed ever since the biggest drop, and renowned investors say the rally has just begun. A relationship between the millennials and capital markets was explained later with the help of certain facts and figures mentioned by CDSL and SEBI, which stated a huge jump in the number of demat accounts majorly opened by millennials. Moving towards the research methodology, qualitative method was used in this research paper and the data collected was secondary data. Previous articles, research reports, presentations, and interviews were collected and taken into consideration before writing the research paper. Heading towards analysis, the ease of opening a demat account, the availability of seamless mobile platforms, and the very low cost of internet access are enticing retail traders to try their hands at stock market. Millennials made 60% of the brokerage new acquisition under Sher Khan. Under Samco Securities, almost 70% of the consumers were first-time stock investors, with over 65% of those between the age of 21 and 35. Following reasons can be stated for this sudden increase. First, the stock market has become more accessible thanks to the emergence of mobile trading apps that charge little or even no commission on trades. Second, according to the stock trading firms, it's not only about having the access to information. Indian millennials are also significantly more financially aware than the prior generations. And also because SEBI, the market regulator, quickly resolved the tremendous confusion that a sudden lockdown in India raised in the stock exchanges. So multiple factors like COVID-19, easy to approach capital markets, booming capital markets where Nifty is giving 40 to 50% return in a year, and the other avenues going down, when put together, gives one a reasonable reason to this phenomenal rally with major participation of millennials that is seen today. Talking about the findings and conclusions, along with the points mentioned, First-time investors should use efficient teaching platforms. Millennials should not take high leveraged position, avoid investing in unfamiliar illiquid stocks without in-depth research, and only invest in the derivative segments after gaining thorough knowledge. New investors should take it slow at first, building a diversified portfolio that includes equities, mutual funds, alternative investments, and gradually increase it over time. So here's my personal advice to the millennials. Start when you are young, when you still have time on your hands. Create a portfolio that is well balanced for your stage of life, as well as your short and long-term objectives. Do not attempt to time the market because wealthy quickly or become wealthy quickly. Wealth development is a fantastic process in which the miracle of compounding can work wonders over time if you choose the quality assets. Thank you.
Yes, Bhakti. Your research paper title increasing interest among a millennial in capital markets. Okay. Yes, indeed. There we have seen a spike. We have seen an increasing interest. So I totally agree with your research findings. And as you said that your research is based on secondary data. Of course, when you plan to continue your research, maybe if you wish to continue this, I would strongly suggest that go for the primary data. uh, you know as far as the investor behavior is concerned or investor psychology is concerned, dear participant, it is very volatile. So amongst millennials also, you could see huge, deviations, huge variations. So again, you have the SEBI, you have the Ministry of Finance continuously emphasizing on stock market investments. Uh, though the initiatives taken by the government through different funds, I hope you must have read about the funds also. One is Investor Protection and Education Fund, okay, IPEF, and one is Investor Protection Fund. The advent of the depositories coming into picture, and totally now we have digitalized trades everywhere. So indeed, I would suggest that when you extend this research, you can go for primary data, and you will find new insights. Okay, but overall, to start with, it was amazing, and some interesting facts even I have discovered in your presentation. So I wish you all the best, Bhakti.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your input. I'll definitely look into it.
You're welcome.
I think our next participant, Priyanka, is not here. Priyanka Iyer. Is Miss Divya Shah over here? So I can give you control. I think the next 2 or 3 participants, Priyanka, Miss Divya Shah, and Shrishti Mehta, are not available. So our next presenter would be Dr. Mangesh Panchal. Sir, I'll be giving you control for the presentation. So you can start presenting, Dr. Panchal.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can hear you. Sir, you need to share your screen.
Yes, ma'am. I want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a minute.
Yes.
Is it my screen visible, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible. The presentation has not started yet, but it's visible. You can see your
Screen
presentation.
Yes, my name, first slide. Can you see it, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
visible.
A very good afternoon, everyone. Respected chairperson of these sessions and my dear friend teachers. A very good afternoon. I am Dr. Mangesh Panchal, Assistant Professor from Ram Niranjan Junjunwala College of Arts, Science and Commerce, Ghatkopar. My research topic is on a study of level of awareness about the investment awareness among the people residing in the district of Ratnagiri and Sindhur, Maharashtra, India. The objective of my research papers are, there are two objectives. The first objective is to study the level of awareness regarding the investment avenues, and second objective is to know the sources of motivation for investment. Research methodology and research design. I had collected the primary data from the 265 respondents from the people residing in the Ratnagiri and Distigiri. I had collected this data in the month of the June, from the 1st June to for around 14 June. Once I have prepared the one structure questionnaire. Most of the data I collected from the face-to-face peoples by conducting interview, or and some data collected from the by circulating the Google online questionnaire, because due to the lockdown periods, strict lockdown, it was not possible to contact the many people. So then I framed these questionnaires on the Googles and then circulated amongst the people, those who are the residing in the people in Ratnagiri and districts, because I am also belonging to them the same area. And secondly, I have reviewed the research papers and PhD thesis. Statistical techniques, I use the chi-square. This awareness about the investment awareness. So most of the people are aware about the bank deposit, real estate, share markets, most saving accounts. And one more thing, I have collected this data from the only literate people. I have not taken the illiterate people. So most of the people are aware, educated. So may they are aware about this one. They are the less aware about of the public provident fund, pension schemes, mutual fund, and debenture bonds. There are four hypotheses. Now, hypothesis number one, there is a significant association between the education and investment pattern for respondent. An alternative hypothesis for that is there is significant association between the education and investment pattern of the respondents. The chi-square test is for this testing the hypothesis. The null, we can see the data. The significance of this one is a 0.46. Therefore, I rejected this null hypothesis and accepted the alternative hypothesis. So finding of this hypothesis was there is a significant association between the education and investment pattern of the respondent. Second hypothesis was there is a whether null hypothesis was there is no significant association between the sources of motivation for investment and savings and investment pattern of respondent. An alternative hypothesis was there is significant association between sources of motivation for investment and saving and investment pattern of respondent. Again, I use the same chi-square because they have to check the association. So I got the value, the p-value is less than 0.00, so which is less than 0.5. Hence we reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative hypothesis. So finding of the study is there is significant association between the sources of motivation for investment and saving and investment pattern of the respondent. Hypothesis number three, whether there is null hypothesis was there is significant association between the monthly income and investment pattern of the respondent. And alternative hypothesis was there is a significant association between the monthly income and investment pattern of the respondent. So this is a data. Again, I got the p-value less than 0.00, which is less than 0.5. Hence, we reject the null hypothesis. So finding of the studies, there is a significant association between the monthly income and investment pattern of the respondent. And hypothesis fourth was null hypothesis, there is significant association between monthly saving and investment pattern of respondent. And alternative, there is significant association between the monthly savings and investment pattern of the respondent. Chi-square, again I use the p-value, I got the 0.00, which is less than 0.5. Hence we reject the null hypothesis and I accept the alternative hypothesis, that is there is significant association between the monthly savings and investment pattern of the respondents. Due to given less number of the slides, I have presented that. So conclusion of the study is that most of the respondents are very well aware about the bank deposit, real estate, share market, and post office saving. They have little awareness about the public provident fund, pension scheme, mutual fund, and debenture. People make the investment according to their monthly incomes and savings, but normally what's happening in the rural areas, the banks are the far away, so they are mostly go to the bank also. The people get the motivation for the investment from their own knowledge, spouse, friends, and financial news channels. suggestion, recommendations. The people should start saving small amount. People should take the efforts to become the expert managers of their own portfolios. The government should increase the opportunity to do the research in this area to find how the rural household are taking the financial decision. That's from my stand, and I am also